All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me here on a Sunday evening. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's always a link in the description, as well as other various join buttons on the YouTube pages here to join and become a member and get that priority answering as well. But yeah, so I hope you guys all are having a good day here. It's been nonstop for me. I've been running, so I might be a little low on energy for this one, but I will still give it my all. But I see we have Brian here, Anthony, Kevin, B. Mitchell, Cars, Linda, Austin, and Grant. Thanks so much for joining in, everyone. And Brian says good evening to you. Hope your weekend is well. Hope yours is going well too. And B. Mitchell says just got back from the Harvester Homecoming show in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I'm cracking open a cool Yingling Oktoberfest or 3 that followed me home. Very nice. That sounds like a great way to kick back and relax. I am jealous of the brews. I'm going to be sitting here with water because alcohol makes me sleepy, and I would I would be really sleepy if I started cracking open some beers, but that sounds delightful right now. Enjoy them. And let me see. Cara says hi, and so does Linda. Austin says, let's hope Richard Simmons doesn't make a return tonight. Yeah, the end of last live stream, there was a spammer that like just blew up the comment section. So I changed the commenting to be, it was always subscribers only, but you don't need to be a subscriber for like 20 minutes. So if you were really focused on making a bunch of spam accounts, you could have, I guess, done that way and done it just 20 minutes in advance. But now you have to have been a subscriber for 24 hours or longer, so hopefully that weeds out a little bit of riffraff there. But we will see. I will be liberal with the block button here if I need to be. But anyway, B. Mitchell says there wasn't a new EV Scout reveal at the show, but there were well over 100 vintage Scouts and Scout 2s, just as many international trucks of all sizes. Corn Binder Nirvana. Crazy. Yeah, I know zero about that world, but I'm glad you enjoyed it, and it's cool that there's such a large gathering of that. That's honestly more of a turnout than I would have expected, at least just in my ignorance here. But Grant, thanks for joining in as well. Austin says, hey, Matt, did you hear about the Mercedes EV that exploded in a parking lot? I haven't heard about that. I will definitely have to look into that. Thanks for the heads up. That yeah, I'll have to, I have a lot of questions, so I'll have to look into that. Thanks. And Good Stick, thanks for joining in too. And Justin, thanks for being a member for 2 years now. I really appreciate it. That's amazing. He says, just realized he hit the 2-year mark. I really appreciate all the support, Austin. And thanks so much. Hope you're having a great weekend. And Luke says, I test drove a Ridgeline, a Tacoma, and a Frontier this weekend. The Frontier was my favorite. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I think Frontier, the beauty about it is it's just simple. It feels old school still, but has great styling. They did enough of a refresh on the inside to make it feel modern enough, for that market. And yeah, Frontiers, I think also still pretty cheap last I saw compared to the others. So yeah, I'm glad you found something you like with a Frontier there, and yeah, let us know if you decide to go for one. And let me see. Justin also says, hope everyone had a good Sunday. Yeah, likewise. And Jazz says, Matt, what do you think of the new green color for the Mach-E? Have you seen pictures of it? Also, the display behind the steering wheel seems too austere, or doesn't that bother you? Yeah, the green color was part of the debut for the launch of the refresh Mach-E here, and it looks really great. We wish that it would have been available in 2022. And because Beth and I both like dark green, not just because of the bullet. Like, she's always liked green as well. It's like her favorite color. So it'd be nice to potentially, if Mach-E's keep depreciating as fast as they do, if we decide we want to just stay with something lower priced, it wouldn't probably make sense to buy out our Mach-E lease once it's done, because it's going to probably be, they're probably going to want more from the lease buyout than it'll be worth at that point. But we've talked about potentially just maybe upgrading a year or two and getting another Mach-E that is exactly what we want, maybe a more fun color this time around, and just stick with those if they're dirt cheap in a couple of years. But Beth was just asking me this weekend, like, if I had any new thoughts about what to replace her vehicle with. We don't have to worry about that till 2026. And I told her like 2026 there's going to be so many new EVs out, and she definitely wants to stick with an electric vehicle. And I think for us it makes the most sense, the way we drive and all that. But you know, there's going to be so many new ones. There's a bunch of new ones from Toyota coming potentially that could be interesting, and from a bunch of companies. So I think Honda's stuff's supposed to show up in 2026. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see. And it'll also come down to, you know, what our budget is and all that. But yeah, you know, potential kind of low cost options, pick up one of those dirt cheap Mach-E's in a couple of years. But anyway, Good Stick says, with the questionable decisions that Ford has made to the Mustang, do you think the Mustang will have the same fate as the WRX, as there's no Evo anymore to compete directly with it? I think it'll kind of be that way. Yeah, because you know, obviously they have expectations within the community for, you know, a new GT500, and that's pretty much it, you know. So I could see them resting on their laurels very easily. You know, I think the only thing that could maybe put Ford on notice is if Dodge somehow, I mean, it's looking a little bleak right now, but if they somehow manage to pull off a success story with the Charger EV, and not only the Charger EV, but also the 6-cylinder, if like the tuning community and the drag community and all that really enjoy the inline 6 turbo motor and the mod potential of it, you know, if that turns into, you know, a next gen 2JZ or something, you know, then I could see maybe Ford saying, well, maybe we should, you know, drop an EcoBoost motor in the Mustang, or maybe we should do something with turbos on the V8 to maybe one up the 6-cylinder in the Charger, or, you know, something like that. But I think if Charger, you know, I mean, I don't know. It seems like the hype is very negative right now on it. We will see if that, you know, ends up being the case with the general public that isn't quite as vocal as every car enthusiast on the internet is. But, you know, if Charger ends up being a dud, then I absolutely see Mustang continuing to just phone it in, you know, because there's no need to compete anymore. There's nothing to chase. And I think the GTD is going to kind of be the new direction of the Mustang, of like, if you're going to look for competitors, you're going to be having to look up market. You're not going to be, there's nothing obviously at the same kind of price point these days that offers what the Mustang does. And so, yeah, you go up market, you make it expensive. And, you know, that's really the only way if you want to search for competition. Otherwise, it's just phone it in, same old, and, you know, play it safe. And, you know, again, I say, like you mentioned with WRX, people don't really have a whole lot of other options. I think these days they certainly do now with GR Corolla and, you know, a few others. But, you know, it's, yeah, I think it's going to be very little incentive to really innovate and move the ball forward in a meaningful way with Mustang. And I mean, they saw this coming, and this is why S650, you know, is such a minor revision over S550, because they knew Camaro was going away. They knew that, you know, Charger was going in a new direction, and that was something they weren't interested in pursuing. And so, I mean, I think they saw that coming from a mile away, and that's why S650 is phoned in as much as it is. And I think it's just going to be more of the same, you know, for S750 or whatever they call it, you know. And I think the initial rumors were saying 2028 for some kind of little redo. But now with the way Ford's pushing all kinds of stuff back, you know, it could also be pushed back as well. We'll have to see. And Chadwick says, hey, Matt, thanks for joining in, Chadwick, and T-Track as well. Linda says, I'm almost 2 years. Time flies. I appreciate the support, Linda. It really means a lot. And Luke says, the Tacoma was $47,000 and still has a manual seat and lower quality feel inside. The Ridgeline RTL has a bad sound system. I love the Frontier's Fender sound system. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe I said something in my review that I don't remember, but that it didn't stand out to me personally, but I agree about the Ridgeline not having a very good sound system. And Tacoma is definitely a tough sell. I think the only saving grace for Tacoma is the resale value. We will see if these new gen versions, though, continue that trend that we saw with the old ones or not. But I think that's the only thing with Tacoma that makes people a little more open to spending extra money, is the fact that they most likely will get that money back if they ever do decide to sell. And so it's, I think, a safer proposition. It's almost like, not that it's not real money, but it's almost like you're playing with Monopoly money with Tacomas, because, you know, you really can pretty much, if you buy it new, you can pretty much drive it for free in many cases, because for some reason people on the used market like paying new Tacoma money for used Tacomas. I don't understand it either, but that's the way it's been for a long time. And so I don't know who these used Tacoma buyers are, but apparently they like paying new car pricing for them. So that's the only perk of the Tacoma. But I mean, there's other perks of the Tacoma as well, obviously now, especially with the engines that the others don't offer and other features. But it is expensive for what it is. I think you're definitely paying a Tacoma tax now. It's almost like a Jeep tax because, again, Toyota knows that they have the resale, they have the following, they're the top dog. But doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the case forever. So it'll be interesting to see how Tacoma and that story develops going forward. Zachary says, super specific comment. I saw Twisters and got distracted by the badge disappearing on the tailgate of the TRX. I also was confused why they were even using TRX since they don't sell it anymore. Interesting. I haven't seen the movie, but that's cool. They got a TRX. Dodge is so good with product placement in movies. I'm glad to see it, but that's funny that the continuity stuff, though, it is really strange. And maybe it's just, they don't think that many car people pay attention to this stuff or something, but it's amazing to me that the lack of continuity in movies oftentimes. And I'm like, all the people that get paid so much money on these movie sets to do all these various things, and they have continuity. You probably know this better than I do, Zach, but people that ensure that everything is, pretty consistent, but they don't do a very good job a lot of the time. And I would happily volunteer. If someone wants to throw me a huge salary, I'll move to LA, do car reviews part-time, and the rest of the time just make sure that badges stay on trucks. I don't know. It doesn't seem that hard, but apparently it's very elusive for Hollywood and TV and all that as well. But yeah, it's funny. I wonder about TRX. I mean, I guess they didn't have RHO probably ready to go, but then again, they put in Charger EV prototype super early in the Fast and Furious movie, so they could have just thrown an RHO badge even on the back of a TRX, and no one would have known any different. But interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for pointing that out. MDKN says, we made it hanging out with some pals at a local car meet at the nearby Sonic. Awesome. I remember doing that back in the day as well. I miss those days, and every once in a while I'll see. Even just last night, there was two people cruising around. I can't remember. One was in a C8, and I think the person chasing him was in like a BMW Z4 or something. And I miss having that kind of free time. I really do miss it. And there's a bunch of sweet cars driving around this weekend. There's been a bunch of car shows. The Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix was happening this weekend, which is like one of the largest things like that. It's a huge Porsche gathering and stuff. So there's a lot of really cool cars that are out this weekend. But even just like I had to do a little errand run to Target this evening, and I heard a new Z06 rip up the road, and that was very nice to hear. So that was my little oral treat for the night here with listening to that. Glad you're having fun there. Enjoy the little local car meet. That's awesome. Sonic is amazing too. They keep disappearing around me. Beth and I, we used to go to Sonic all the time pre-kid, but now they're not even around. Even if we did have the free time to go, the nearest one I think is now like 25 minutes away. It's kind of a bummer, but I love Sonic as well. Let me see. Sean, thanks for being a member for 25 months. I really appreciate it. He says, trucks are too big and pricey now. I'm just going to buy a sedan and make a ute. That would be awesome. Maybe a G35 or Crown Vic might be fun. Just need a saw and drinks. There you go. I vote for Crown Vic. I think that would be kind of fun because I feel like that's kind of a little less expected. Maybe not, but I don't know. To me, that would be a little bit more of a double take thing. Then I feel like G35s, unfortunately, have just a lot of them have been hacked to pieces, just because of the crowd that buys them and turns them into drift missiles or whatever we're gonna call it. But I think Crown Vic's a little less common, so that'd be fun. But yeah, someone needs to. I mean, I think Ford really figured it out with Maverick, and that's still a super hot seller. And it still has amazed me that a few years later here, other companies haven't phoned it in. Hyundai's the only one that's bothered doing something like that. But, and I won't go on a whole tangent about that. But, I mean, literally anybody with like an SUV or a wagon or something, hack the back end off, give it a 4-foot bed, and call it a day. It's so easy to phone in, and it would sell like crazy, I think, just because people were tired of waiting for Mavericks still. It's like an easy default win. Like I don't get it. But I'll try to avoid being armchair product planner over here too much tonight. But let me see. Jazz says, "Where is Matt? Is he shaving to get ready for his appearance on the live Q&A?" I shaved yesterday, so I was fairly shaved here, so I'm good to go for you, Jazz. Not too much facial here tonight. Austin says, "Hey, Matt, did you catch any of the Whistling Diesel Cybertruck durability test? The rear frame sheared off, towing an F-150. That is wild." I don't watch Whistling Diesel, so I didn't see any of that stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't suspect the Cybertruck would fare very well in any kind of test, to be completely honest, personally. But yeah, that's crazy. Dom says, "Hey Matt, been a while for me. Hope all is well. Hope everything's good with you, Dom, as well. Thanks so much for continuing to be a member here for over 2 years as well. I really appreciate that, and glad you're able to join in here in the live stream. Hope you're doing well though, and staying cool. I believe you're still in Florida, if I remember correctly. Hopefully you're not overheating too much down there. It's been, even today it was almost 90 up here, so I can definitely I'm getting close to the point of being excited for fall, I think. But Good Stick says, "At least Toyota's replacing the turbo engines for free." Yeah, in those 6-cylinder ones there. Ford in the 70s would have rather paid wrongful death lawsuits than fix the car. Same with a lot of American manufacturers. Agreed. Yeah. And I think that says a lot about Toyota as well. There's been a lot of complaints about the Hyundai motors, and they replace some of those under warranty, but from what I've heard, there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of hair pulling and stuff to get that actually done sometimes. And the fact that Toyota is not even waiting for these motors to blow like Hyundai kind of does sometimes, or like we're seeing, it took them forever to even do a recall here on the Santa Fe with the transmission issues that has been having, whereas literally 100,000 engines, I believe it is, that they're just preemptively just being like, yep, you get a new engine, you get a new engine, you get a new engine. Like, that is a lot of money, even for Toyota, who's, the biggest automaker in the world. But I mean, to me, and also is the fact that it wasn't an engineering fault. It was literally like literal crap on the assembly line, debris that just got into those and, screwed it up. So, to me, engineering is still solid on those. The reliability rating for Toyota, in my mind, at least, is still solid. And they're doing the right thing by their customers and giving everyone a new engine, literally just because debris was laying around on the assembly line there. Like, it's, to me, I think they kind of nailed the response there. Maybe it didn't happen as fast as some people would have liked, but I think in the end, Toyota did the right thing there. And I mean, companies, including Toyota, have also done some BS denials on warranty claims. I've seen, some of this kind of stuff. I think there was just one recently that Jack from Savage Geese highlighted, that Toyota denied a GR Corolla warranty claim when the thing literally burned to the ground, and they blamed it on like the wheels and tires being changed or some BS like that. I hope that stuff, after the first headlines and the backlash, that hopefully they end up taking care of them and realizing that was a stupid decision made by probably some lower level person. But I mean, these companies aren't perfect with that. Obviously, they want to minimize their spend. But to me, I think Toyota handled that one in particular with the Tundras pretty well. And Luke says, "The only downfall with the Frontier is wired Android Auto. I test drove a Pro 4X. Gotcha." Yeah, I mean, that's obviously personal preference as far as how often you use that stuff. And it is worth noting, I think there should be the same kind of adapters that you can get with Apple CarPlay. I don't know as much about the Android Auto world, but with Apple CarPlay, there are adapters for wire to turn into wireless. Some of the adapters work better than others, so I wouldn't go cheap on one if you're going to try that, because apparently there can be connectivity issues if you go for one of the crappy ones. But if you get a good quality one, and supposedly that kind of is a great workaround, and you get that wireless capability there. I was actually considering it for the Bullet back when I had that, had the Bullet. But to me, I don't use CarPlay a lot for around town trips, so it wasn't a big deal, especially since I very rarely drove it anyway. But yeah, so I think there might be a workaround there. So if that's your only deal breaker is wired Android Auto, look into an adapter. And that might end up, making everything all good with the Frontier, potentially. Dom says, "What shirt are you wearing?" I'm wearing a Pittsburgh Pirates shirt. This is their old logo from back in, I believe, the 60s and 70s there. So just showing my Pittsburgh love today. And MD Can says, "Oh, Matt, the Crackhead is finally no more. Finally no longer stock. I just threw my turbo inlet and taking an intake on today. She sounds like a jet engine taking off." Nice. That's awesome. So yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, MBCan has a Kona N. So he's modded it there with some parts, and that's always fun. Intakes are a very fun mod, because just hearing all the extra whooshing sounds is just hilarious. And I remember those days. It's fun stuff for sure. So enjoy that. Sean, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, I'm in SoCal and I see tons of Cybertrucks. Used bolts are cheap. Maybe I'll make one of those into a ute. Oh, you have an EV truck? Me too. Cost me 15 grand. It's not ugly and it fits in a compact spot. Bingo. There you go. That is it. Yeah, and a bolt would be a great little, I mean, probably when I extend the bed a little bit there in the back, so your truck bed isn't, only 2 feet long or something. But that'd be a cool way to go too, especially if you get one of the bolts that's had the battery replaced under warranty with this recent gen, and I think even the prior gen, because then you got a brand new battery potentially, or really a new battery that's solid, and you're good to go for a long time too. So it could be a solid buy if you want to search around for that. And thank you again, Sean, for the super chat there. And let me see. So Dave says, do you know what inventory around you is like for scat packs? My dealer still has Challengers, Chargers, and 300Cs they can't sell. That's surprising. I mean, I guess 300C I can maybe envision, because that kind of wasn't much of a hot seller towards the end there anyway. But Challengers and Chargers, you would think that, again, all the people, maybe just everyone that's upset about the new one already has the old one, and they're good. But, I would think that they would have cleared out Challengers and Chargers pretty easily. It's been a little while since I drove past my local Dodge dealer, but I mean, I remember them having some. It's just hard to tell if it's a used or a new one, because again, they've looked the same for the past, more than 5 years. But yeah, so I mean, I remember there were some laying around, but I don't know how much they've been stocked around my area. I mean, they're very popular vehicles around here, so I don't know. I'll have to check into that, and maybe I can get back to you next week if that's okay. Because now I'm curious as well. I didn't realize that they were struggling to sell Challengers and Chargers. And Zachary says that Whistling Diesel video is kind of irritating. They did completely ridiculous things that real people would normally do to break it. Now it's making uninformed headlines. Great. Well, some of those YouTubers are very good at that. And yeah, again, I know zero about Whistling Diesel. I don't think I've ever actually watched a single video of theirs. It's not my type of content. But that's the name of the game with these outrageous YouTubers, is you got to get a crazy thumbnail. You got to get a crazy title. You got to do something. It's just, the poor vehicle is just I don't even know what you want to call it. It's not even, guinea pig is too kind of a word. It's just an absolute wrecking ball, just because people like seeing carnage. So even calling it a test is probably generous. It's probably, no more of a test than a drop test is, basically, for a smartphone or something. And as Austin says, true to a point, Zachary, with the F-150 fared better overall durability-wise, unless you count the ride attack and the C4. Yeah, so... oh man, 2 is back. Thanks for joining in, 2, and thank you for the super chat. We have 2 Chang in the house here. Thanks for joining in. Hope you're doing well, 2. And yeah, looking forward to some more raps tonight from 2, who surprised us last week with being a lyrical genius with his rhymes. So we'll see if he can come up with any tonight. I'll keep an eye out in the member chats here for any. And also, too, thanks for being a member here also for over 2 years as well. I really appreciate that. And let me see. B. Mitchell says, talking about the Crown Vics there. So I appreciate the advice there, B. Mitchell. And Jordan says, if you were in charge of creating a product out of the Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi merger, what would it be? So it's not really a merger, it's more of a partnership, but I get what you mean. But just for anyone else isn't aware and didn't watch the weekly update this past week. But so as far as what I would make, that's a good question. I mean, if we disregard them saying they want to have like mutually complementary vehicles, which probably means not directly competing with each other as much. If we ignore that whole thing, I would say, I don't know. It'd be cool to see Honda maybe take Nissan Z platform, throw Type R motor in it. Again, I'm really dreaming here because I'm sure none of this stuff would actually work, or bolt up easily or fit or whatever. But Type R motor and rear drive Z platform, and try to make some kind of Frankenstein S2000 successor, maybe. That would be something. Also, you could say throw twin turbo V6 from Z into and rebody a Z to be much larger and make it a 3000 GT successor. Again, these would be just like dream things that they'd sell 5 of each of these. So, it wouldn't be a very good product thing if you're asking about a smart vehicle that would sell very well and be a commercial success. I think there's a lot of duplication that can happen in the lineup. Take the greatest hits of every one of those brands and give a variant for the others and print money. They could try and do something like that if they were okay kind of competing and sharing that much, which is probably a big stretch as well. But I'd say it'd be bring back all the JDM icons of the 90s as best as you possibly can. And that would probably be the way that I would go about it. Let me see. So I think, all right, Tu's here with a super chat. I appreciate the super chat too. He says, by the way, I just realized thanks to our Kelly basement jokes don't age well. I don't know. I haven't heard any updates about R. Kelly recently, but I caught some of that way back whenever all that craziness was happening. He really went out with a bang there. And Super Game, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, what are the top 5 most fun auto transmission vehicles? Man. So obviously there's going to be some subjectivity here because it's what I think is fun, which isn't always what everyone else thinks is fun. Top 5 most. I mean, Jaguar F-Type R has got to be in there. To me, Corvette Z06 is one of them as well. I mean, if you want to go exotic, I mean, if we're talking about things that I haven't driven but most likely can assume are really fun, Bugatti Chiron, things like that. All the Ferraris, take your pick. I think they're all pretty great, honestly. It's a lot of good stuff. So it's going to come down to, if you're looking for a price range or, exactly what it is, because that's a very wide net to cast of top 5 most fun auto transmission vehicles. But out of the ones that I have personal experience with, Z06, F-Type R, and Ferrari 458 Spider was a lot of fun with an automatic there. And trying to think of others that are like that high up that they're like top 5. I'm trying to think of, I guess to me, Lexus LC500 convertible, because it's just very loose with the suspension setup. So it's like great V8. So that's probably got to make the list for me too. And I guess, as far as exotic stuff that I've driven, McLaren 720S is an automatic. That's one of the more wilder ones that I've driven as well. So you can throw that on the list. And I think that's 5 there. Again, not a great list. And I'm more than happy to narrow it down there. Too says GR Corolla, GR86. Come on, Mr. Shill. I appreciate the super chat too. I mean, GR Corolla, I'm excited to try that with the automatic. That's going to definitely be very fun. GR86 automatic is fine if you can't live with a manual for whatever reason. But it's an older 6-speed auto. It's by no means an outstanding automatic outside of maybe the reliability component, but it's not a very fun automatic, I guess I could say. But all right, I see Supra also says appreciate the reply, man. And I mean, speaking of Supra, I mean anything with that ZF auto like the Supra and many of the others, Hellcats, stuff like that, all of those that have the Z8 ZF 8-speed auto are really well done, really a lot of fun too. And let me see. So Jazz says, I'll be in Pittsburgh this weekend visiting family cemetery. Any car events this weekend coming up? You just discussed last weekend. So Vintage Grand Prix was the big one here. That would have been the one to definitely hit up if you were around this weekend. Otherwise, I think next weekend is the normal Pittsburgh Cars and Coffee meet. There's usually a pretty good turnout there, especially, now we're in the full swing of summer and all that. So you can Google Pittsburgh Cars and Coffee and check that out if you'd like. Technically, they say that it's not a spectator event. They want you to bring an interesting vehicle. It's not so much a car show that's for the public. That's kind of not a super strict thing. And, I'm not sure what you'll be driving up in, if it's something that, be interesting to show off or not. But, that's really the only kind of disclaimer I'll say about that one. Otherwise, I'm unfortunately very out of the loop on car events. I haven't been to a car meet in a long time. I haven't been to even like regular car shows in a good while. I haven't done any this year. I think I did 1 or 2 last year, and that was it. So very out of the loop on that. I would do more, but our daughter doesn't like loud cars right now. So she was kind of into them a little bit, earlier in her childhood, toddler years, but now she's not a big fan of loud stuff. So that's why we didn't do Vintage Grand Prix or anything else here this weekend. But maybe someday she'll come around. We'll see. But Dom says, I haven't been in Florida since the end of 2021. Gotcha. I bounced around the country and landed back in Colorado. Nice. Well, congrats. Sorry, I missed the memo there about you leaving Florida, but that's, yeah, I won't make any comments about Florida, but glad to hear. It sounds like you're happy in Colorado there, and hope it's treating you well. Joel says, in the case of Toyota, I don't think they had a choice with NHTSA breathing on their necks and their own research suggesting 100% failure rate for those engines. Gotcha. Well, I'm sure there's some of that then as well. So it's hard to say, without all the info, exactly what the case is as far as whether it was commendable on their part or something they had their back against the wall on, but interesting. And Austin says, I heard it was because of the GR Corolla was damaged in a prior accident. They just mentioned the tires in the report, which was a weird thing to do. Gotcha. Okay. So another rage baiting kind of headline, I suppose. So that's unfortunate. Well, I'm glad that at least it wasn't a BS thing on Toyota's part there, I guess, if it wasn't repaired properly or something. And Mike says, Matt, do you think Honda benefits the least from the Nissan Honda Mitsubishi alliance? I'd say, yeah, probably. I mean, I think it is actually pretty fair for Nissan and Honda, because I'd say, generally speaking, I like Honda products better than Nissan products, just from build quality, driver standpoint, and all of these, various metrics. I feel like Honda typically does a better job than Nissan does. But I think Honda also is a little too stuck in their ways with kind of phoning things in a little too much, playing it a little bit too safe in many cases. And so I feel like maybe Nissan, could push them out of their comfort zone a little bit, because I feel like Nissan is a little more comfortable with pushing the envelope a little bit. I mean, they're, no Hyundai or anything with wild designs or anything, but I think Nissan could be good for Honda's decision-making potentially. But I think, at the end of the day, Honda probably benefits the least. I mean, but we also are looking at these things from an American perspective. I'm assuming, Mike, you're also here in the US, but when you look at other markets around the world, there's other areas where Nissan does dominate Honda. Nissan is still huge, and Mitsubishi is another one. I mean, obviously they're kind of a joke here in the States at this point, unfortunately, which is sad, but they, in other, parts of the world, are still massive sellers. And and also Mitsubishi, they also have the support of the Mitsubishi Corporation, not just the car division, but like Mitsubishi in general. It does appliances, commercial stuff. They have a huge footprint in industry in general. And, so with that, they're also a pretty big deal elsewhere in the world. So I think that they also can benefit each other in various locales differently, so maybe Mitsubishi gets the biggest lift here in the States, but if Honda's slacking in another part of the world or something, where Nissan or Mitsubishi or both could come in and give them some stuff that Honda could use, I think it's a very mutually beneficial thing. And so it's always just, I think for me, it's always exciting from a new product standpoint of this opens up so many possibilities, and hopefully, there's less of the echo chamber kind of stuff that prevents new ideas from coming in, and, allows there to be a little bit more outside the box thinking. And so that's kind of always my hope with these kind of alliances. It's like, hey, here's a new perspective. Maybe they discount it immediately and just stick to their ways. But I think that especially the EV transition here has really, again, these are companies that would have never partnered up, generally speaking, on this close of a level before, but they're literally going to be sharing full platforms. Basically, we're talking batteries, motors, the other mechanical, physical components for the electric drivetrain and stuff. You're basically, it's like you're sharing engines and platforms, which is, a big commitment. So, I think that it's really been interesting to see how these companies have now kind of softened up on these things that 10 years ago they would have laughed in your face if you told them this stuff was happening. So I mean, I think it really is also just showing the agility of the Japanese brands to be willing to make these kind of partnerships and make them quickly, and hopefully, get caught up to the Chinese, BYD in particular, before it's game over, because it seems like they are really growing super fast. I just read an article about how BYD basically like took over the Brazilian car market. Like, I mean, I guess the Brazilian car market's not enormous, but like it's still a decent amount of cars, and they took it over like overnight with like dirt cheap EVs. And money talks. If you offer people super cheap cars that people are comfortable taking a gamble on because they're so cheap, it really can change things very quickly. And I think that's why these tariffs were put in place. And I'm not going to get into politics here, but if those tariffs don't hold, I mean, it'll be very interesting. You think there's been a lot of change in the past even 5 years? Buckle up, because it's going to be nuts if like it's free game out there for anybody to do whatever they want. So we'll see how it all plays out, and that's something that can actually be affected here in the fall. So we'll see how that all changes things or doesn't. We'll see. And let me see. Dom says, I like the shirt. I got to look for one for my team. Yeah, the old logos are always kind of a fun, different thing instead of just wearing the same logo that everyone else is wearing all the time, Dylan says, aside from Bullet, what car movie edition would you like to see created? Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, if we're going to disqualify Bullet, because I'd like to see a Bullet edition Charger as well, especially now that it looks like the 68 one. But outside of that, I don't know, I'm trying to think of all the other car movies and what would be something. So most of the car movies, there's nothing signature about the look. They're usually pretty off-the-shelf models that there doesn't need to be a special edition for if you want to match, that look. So, I mean, I gotta like look at my movies here and see. I mean, I think the only thing I do kind of wish that, I mean, Aston Martin does a pretty good job of monetizing, the James Bond movies, but I almost wish they would do more direct connections. Like there was never a No Time to Die DBS, even though, that was in the movie. And I mean, again, wasn't anything special. It was just like that speck of, dark gray on the DBS, and it was only made, like a 30-second appearance in the movie or whatever. But like, there's a few people that probably be like, oh, I got the No Time to Die edition of the DBS. I think that something like that would have been cool. But as far as like old movies and stuff, I mean, if Ford wants to get creative, I think that there's still maybe not as much, but I feel like it's got to be at least as strong as Bullet, where they could do a Gone in 60 Seconds edition of the Mustang, especially if they do a GT500. And again, that's not, a super unique look because it's just gray with black stripes, right? So, I mean, not a whole lot there, but, maybe if you use it as an opportunity to do more retro cues, so you do like your regular GT500, and even if the paint scheme isn't unique, you put the old 60s Shelby badges on the back, and do the faux gas cap and stuff like they did on the Bullet, do something like that there and make a retro looking GT500. Again, they can only go so far. They're not going to be able to put round headlights on it or anything, but like, do something like that. I think that could be cool. I also think it's crazy. Maybe Jeep has never, I don't know, gotten through to the Jurassic Park team, but you would think that there would be like, I mean, there's been like kind of unofficial things and stuff, but you would think that they would do more Jurassic Park tie-ins than they have been, with all these new movies they've come out with in the past 10 years. I don't really follow the Jurassic Park franchise, but you would think that every single new Jurassic Park movie, there'd be, a new Wrangler right alongside it. And there would be more, collaboration there, especially since how, Dodge and Jeep and all them love to do all these tie-ins like we were just talking about with, Twisters and stuff. So, yeah, I think those are probably top ones off the top of my head. It's a fun question though. Thanks, Dylan. Let me see. I think we had a couple more Other super chats too. Thank you so much for another super chat here. He says Matt is used to shilling. He's from Pittsburgh. If he was a little older, a little heavier, and a little deader, he would be Billy Mays. Rip to the goat. Yep, Billy Mays is from Pittsburgh. He actually was from I'd say like 10 minutes away from where I grew up, honestly. So he's it was a big deal around here whenever he passed. It was because I think he actually had the funeral in Pittsburgh, and it was, you know, like a presidential motorcade, basically, you know, for that whole thing. Maybe that'll be my future. We will see. If YouTube really goes belly up, I'll be like ringing out squeegees and yelling at the camera. That'll be my rock bottom or something. We'll see. I mean, Billy Mays, I mean, obviously he's a legend in his own right, but not a career goal of mine. But hey, never say never, right? And Dale says that last one was horrible. This is why I get locked to the radiator. Yeah, hope you're enjoying the basement there too. Thanks for being a member for 26 months as well. Yeah, and let me see. Back to other questions here. Awesome, says the basement strikes back. Luke says, I'm debating if I want to bother looking at the Colorado Canyon or not, since I pretty much fell in love with the Frontier. Yeah, and you know, depending on what you liked in particular about Frontier, I will say, like, you know, Colorado and Canyon are a little more technically complicated. You know, like you don't have light switches and those that's in the screen. The screen dominates the experience a lot more. It's, you know, trying to be more modern, which I think is certainly a good approach, but it's just polar opposite in mindset, I think, compared to Frontier. And so, you know, there's also been some glitches with the, I think the infotainment stuff I remember hearing about for Colorado too. So honestly, Frontier is probably a safer bet from a, you know, headache standpoint. They might both be mechanically solid, but the software in the Chevy still seems a little half-baked. So that's the only other thing I'll say about those. So yeah, I mean, like, honestly, you probably get a better deal on a Frontier as well. So, you know, if you're trying to watch your money a little bit there, Frontier's probably gonna be tough to beat, honestly. And let me see. I see Sean's weighing in there about the a Challenger Nobody edition. That's pretty funny. And Austin says, hey, Matt, what do you think the production / take rate will be for the automatic GR Corolla? Good question. I'm hoping whenever I get to drive it at some point, or the next time I have a Toyota event, I'm going to ask the Toyota team if they have bumped production capacity. Because back whenever I was talking to them about this on the original GR Corolla launch, I believe they said they production capped at like something around 6,600 units. I think that was for the States or North America. It might have been global. I don't know. But regardless, they were capped. So if they now have to split between automatic and manual and they're still at that limit, which I think is probably the case because they are hand built, like they pull regular Corollas off the line and it's all like, you know, hand built with GR and all that. There's only so much you can expand that. So if that's the case, I mean, I think they'll probably play this the same way they played Supra manual, just in reverse, you know, where it's like, oh, this is the new exciting fun thing. It broadens the appeal more. And so I think you will see them probably lean heavily into producing automatics for 2025. Because again, especially that's the new hot thing. Everyone that's been on the sidelines hoping for that. You know, now once that's, you're going to want to boost production of that. And you would assume that most people at this point that want a manual GR Corolla probably already have them, so you can kind of put that production on the back burner a little. I mean, obviously there's people that want the new bumper, want the extra little bit of torque, you know, the other little slight tweaks there, but not a lot of people. So I think if you greatly diminish manual production, you know, no one's going to be too upset about that most likely for 2025, and then see, you know, and try and, you know, maybe, you know, kind of feather that out throughout the course of the next couple of model years, depending on how long it lasts. You know, for GR Corolla in general, and just, you know, go from there. But I would expect 2025, it's gonna be hard to find a manual one, most likely. And that makes sense, you know, in my opinion. And Austin says, I thought R. Kelly was the closet jokes. That, oh man, a fellow South Park fan. I appreciate that. The amount of times that I've sung, is it, yeah, because R. Kelly went in with Tom Cruise, right, in that episode. brilliant television. Let me see. So, Michelle, thank you so much or Michael, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but thanks so much for rejoining and becoming a member again. I really appreciate that. And okay, I see Jay's now commenting. So he says, sorry, something was up with my membership, got it resolved. Well, thanks for rejoining, Jay. I really appreciate that. And I will now take note of the new username there. Let me see. Back to the member questions here. Austin says 500 Abarth auto is pretty awesome, though I'm biased. Okay, so I think I drove one of those as a cabrio on anyone who's been following the channel a long time might remember the road to SEMA, where a bunch of us YouTubers all did a little road trip to SEMA in Vegas. And one of the stints that I did was in a 500 Abarth auto. And at least back in the day, it wasn't the sportiest auto, in my opinion. Again, especially compared to the ZF 8-speeds we were just getting out of, and the Charger and the Challengers and stuff, which were really fast. But again, same thing. Like, people are like mad about GR Corolla now having an automatic, and I'm like, why? Like, it increases the appeal. Our hope for all of us, I'm assuming, as enthusiasts, is to have more people be enthusiasts, enjoy their vehicles, and so being exclusionary and elitist about these mentalities is just, to me, like a self-destructive thing for car culture. And like, I don't know why you would want to exclude people. And so to me, like, give everyone the option for everything. And it's just also, I think, kind of ignorant to think that everyone can live with a manual. Some people have injuries that prevent them from enjoying that. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to enjoy a GR Corolla or a 500 Abarth or whatever the case is. And a lot of people just, again, they're in grueling stop and go traffic every day, where every car I've ever bought has been a manual, but I wouldn't own a manual if I had to deal with LA traffic every day and that was my only car. I wouldn't have a manual either. So, like, to me, more choices the better. And I think it's great to see those options. And even if it's not the best, or it's not the best option, or it's not what you would pick, like, again, live and let live, and give people the option. I think it's great. B. Mitchell says, jingling Oktoberfest #2. Hey, I deserved it. Traffic sucked going through Chicago. I bet. I got stuck in Chicago traffic whenever I actually went to pick up my second GT Mustang back in 2016, 2017. That was, speaking of a manual and traffic, I got stuck in going through Chicago there. Brutal traffic. I don't know, I was in it for like an hour or something, that poor clutch. So yes, I agree, you deserve it. Enjoy the Oktoberfest, and I wish I could join you there. Good Stick says, saw Saturn Relay minivan a couple of days ago, have not seen one for over a decade. Wow, yeah, those are pretty rare. That's cool you saw one. I haven't seen one probably I don't know about a decade, but it's been a long time since I've seen one as well. And Trenton Carga, thanks for joining in. This is greetings from Arizona. Garth Rocker says, best automatic experience in a car is the Nissan GT-R and the Dodge Challengers. Great transmissions, long life. The GT-R and the Challenger. I hope to get a GT-R used one day. Amazing car. GT-R is really good. And honestly, for an old dual clutch, I mean, it's been many years since I drove a GT-R, but like, even back in the early days, like, they did a very good job on a dual clutch for, when we're talking in those days, it was hard to nail a dual clutch unless you were Porsche. And Nissan did a really good job with that. They do have some brilliant engineers. Whenever you give them the budget to run wild, I mean, I don't know how many of those people that worked on the GT-R are still there, but they really, that, again, I've said many times how I love the R35s with probably an irrational passion, but yeah, I think that's a very well done dual clutch for the time, especially. And Chadwick says, sorry, late to send a message, but I'm running to test drive the auto GR Corolla Core. I'm thinking it will pair well for my wife and I. That's awesome. Well, I hope you're able to get a test drive in, and then dealers aren't too annoying with that. And hope that it lives up to your expectations. I'm very curious to try that new transmission, because the GR team seems to think very highly of it. I mean, they developed it, so of course they do. But I mean, it sounds promising. Maybe it's going to be, a wet blanket and it's all marketing hype, but I really hope that it actually is fun and is a good way to enjoy the GR Corolla. And yeah, I think that'd be a great pickup if they keep it, around 40 grand for the price tag. And yeah, so be curious to hear your thoughts on it, Chadwick, whenever you do get a chance to hop in one. And Good Stick says it'd be cool if Mitsubishi brought back the Evo with the new partnership. They could develop a new platform with Honda and bring back the Evo as the Type R doesn't have all-wheel drive. That's a good idea, and that's a good point. If they want to do these mutually beneficial things that don't step on the other one's toes, you're right. Yeah, be like, okay, Honda, if you don't want to do all-wheel drive on the Type R or on the Type S, cool. Give us the stuff. We'll do all-wheel drive. I agree. That would be awesome. Absolutely. That would be great to see. And if a lot of the heavy lifting was done already with the engineering on the motor and stuff, then that could maybe help Mitsubishi get there. But I just think, at least here in the States, again, Mitsubishi's got bigger fish to fry. I think if I were running Mitsubishi right now, I mean, it's still just, I mean, they have Outlander, so I guess that main segment is covered, but I'd be, shopping left and right. I'd say, okay, let's take a Frontier and, throw Mitsubishi badges on that. Let's, take every sedan that Nissan makes and throw badges on, or the Hondas. Honestly, I'd probably pick Accord over Altima if we're just shopping for whatever. And there's no limits here. I'd say slap Mitsubishi badges on an Accord, call it the Galant. I mean, you could go all day, go through the entire catalog of Mitsubishi and bring them back with badge, jobs. And I think that would be, at least giving Mitsubishi dealers a little more options there to sell people. And it'd be cool to see if Evo was one of those as well. But let me see. And Good Stick also says Chevy did make the Transformers edition of the Camaro. It looks exactly like the movie car down to the paint and the rear wing. Nice. Yeah, I remember when those came out too. I was never into the Transformers movies myself, but it was cool to see more movie editions. I think it's a strong marketing thing that is still kind of under tapped, in my opinion. And Jordan Car Guy says, just so you know, Matt, I sent you an email with my other car you can use for Member Car of the Week. I appreciate that. Thanks for sending it. I think I did see it come through. It's just been a busy week. I had a little bit more stuff to upload, and it's just a little bit crazier than a typical week, but I will definitely share that here. He's got a Mitsubishi Lancer that I'll be posting up. And anyone else, by the way, if you're a member, send me an email or any of the other social media stuff in the description of the video here. If you have a car you want to show off, doesn't have to be anything special, doesn't have to be anything, even nice. If you want to it's always curious for myself, and I'm sure others, to see, what other members are driving. And so it's always fun to do the Member Car of the Week things whenever I have those to share. And thanks for sending that in, Truck and Car Guy. And Two says, back to the basement. Thanks for stopping by, Two, and hope you have a good week. Cam Jam saying hi as well. All good, Cam. Thanks for joining in. And Jordan says, is Lucid only being sold in California? I live in Florida, and I still haven't seen one. Only seen one Toyota Crown as well. Interesting. I actually saw a Toyota Crown just yesterday, and I've been seeing Lucids more and more around here. I think Lucid, if I remember correctly, I mean, they might only have a few dealerships, but they do, I think, do the Tesla thing where they just ship them to you if you want to buy one. You don't live near one of those locations or whatever. I mean, there's actually a couple local that I've been seeing on a fairly regular basis now here in Pennsylvania. So they're not only sold in just California, they are out there in other places. It's maybe just people are a little nervous about, the servicing or something if you're far from, one of their home bases. But I think I don't know their sales volume, but I think they're doing okay from a volume standpoint. So they got to be selling elsewhere other than just California. Good Stick says the California Police Department are going to use the Tesla Model Y as a police car. These cars are not very durable and are super expensive to repair. Bad choice for a police car. I mean, there's definitely some repair issues with Model Y for sure. I mean, I'm hoping with the push bars and stuff that maybe, there's going to be a little less damage you often have to replace. Obviously, there's still going to be some that get wrecked. But I mean, I think, they ran their numbers. I saw just a quick little blurb on that. I didn't read into it a whole lot. But it's one of the Newport Beach or something like that. It's not a giant jurisdiction, I don't think either. But I mean, I think also Model Ys have already been in services for California Highway Patrol too. If I remember correctly. I know New York's got a bunch of them. In New York City, every time I go through New York City, I see a few Model Y cop cars as well there. I mean, they're really famous as Uber vehicles and stuff. You can put a ton of miles on them, and they're again fairly cheap, which I think is also part of that incentive now. You probably wouldn't have seen a bunch of Model Ys popping up for fleet duties before the past year or two here, but I think now that Tesla is getting desperate with sales, and Model Y is also near the end of its I guess freshness period. I guess that ship has sailed a little while ago, but it's getting old, so I think there's definitely some deals to be had. So if the police departments are running the numbers and they say, okay, well, we don't have to buy gas for these things. It's way cheaper to charge it than it is to, fuel up. And that it's just, again, you're not going to be burning through the entire mileage in a shift, and you can, top it off pretty quick. I think they said, if I remember correctly, they were going to cut their running costs for their fleet in half or something, going from the Model Y from the gas stuff that they were in previously. So if it saves them money, saves the taxpayers money, I'm all for it. I mean, obviously it'll be a trial. We will see what happens. And if, all of these Model Ys fall apart at the seams and, are just complete nightmares, then I'm sure they'll go right back to the gas stuff. But there's been huge issues with gas stuff too. I mean, I think I saw a report how the Durangos, there's a bunch of police departments that are, I think there's a class action lawsuit, if I remember correctly, that, and don't quote me on all this, but that the Durango's been around forever. Like, there should be no new surprises about Durango production and oh, we have a new issue we haven't seen before. They're old as dirt, but Durangos, apparently all these police units are having massive engine failures and leaving these police departments with not having police vehicles that they need because Dodge is dropping the ball on figuring out how to screw together a 5.7 liter Hemi motor. Apparently, again, why is this a problem? It just seems like it's something you couldn't screw up if you tried. But so we want to talk about durable vehicles. It sounds like Durango isn't a safe bet anymore either. So what is a safe bet for a police vehicle? Honestly, I mean, Ford's got issues as well. And I mean, Ford led, I think, all manufacturers for the amount of recalls this past year. Again, if I remember correctly. I mean, I feel bad, honestly, for these police departments having to pick a vehicle these days because you don't have the easy choice of the Crown Vic anymore, which was, rock solid, basically. And so now it's well, what do you go with? I guess probably the best bet would be Tahoe, because I think Chevy can still screw together their old V8s pretty well. And I haven't heard of any new issues with Tahoe, so I guess that would be the play, is just run straight to Chevy. But anyway, yeah, we'll see how that all plays out for them. Hyper Shadow says, OMG, Matt, nothing's wrong, just being dramatic. So I had a friend drive me in his GR Corolla to show me how fast it was, and it felt like barely 200 horsepower. Did it feel fast to you? Rip Billy Mayonnaise. So as far as GR Corolla, I think, the point of that, motor is it's a very boosty kind of engine. So if you aren't, I mean, I'm assuming your friend was redlining it and stuff, but to me, what I found is GR Corolla it really is a motor because it relies so heavily on the turbo. It really relies on that boost weather. And so, and this is something a few others even commented on the first drive of the GR Corolla. We were up at elevation and it was a scorching summer day. We were at, I think we used to be called Miller Motorsports Park there in Utah, I believe, and I don't know what it's called now, but anyway, not a good place for the launch in my opinion, but that's where they launched it, and a lot of people were complaining it didn't feel like 300 horsepower there. To me, it felt close enough to 300 that it wasn't a sticking point to me. But I'm not sure, I don't remember where you live, Hyper Shadow, but if you live in a place where it's super hot, if the motor was sitting around and was getting heat soaked right before your test drive and you guys were hanging out in traffic or sitting in the car talking with the engine running or something, and then he went and tried to stomp on it whenever the thing's heat soaked, that could really hurt it as well. But then, I mean, and I even noticed this, whenever I had one for a week last year, during the day driving it around, maybe felt, still fast and fun. But the magic, I think what really I did a night drive in that. I went to go see Oppenheimer and I took the GR Corolla and I went to an 11 o'clock show or something. I got out at 1:30 in the morning or 2 or whatever it is for that movie. And, no one on the road. I won't elaborate more on my driving, but that, boost weather, that cooler, nighttime summer weather, and especially going to fall and winter, that's where getting on that thing, whenever you got boost weather going with that turbo again being so essential to that car's power equation, that night drive is what sold me on that. So I, again, not sure what your conditions were when you experienced it, but that was really what sealed the deal for me. Like, this thing is magical in boost weather, especially. I mean, it's still great again on a scorching summer day, but boost weather at night, that drive is like burned into my brain, and I have such vivid memories of I mean, it's only a year ago. It's not like I'm talking about something from 20 years ago, but it really left a mark on me. And that's why, the second someone says most fun car for, a variety of different categories, I'm like GR Corolla, and everyone rightly, is like, oh, he's a shill, because I adore that thing. And so I do agree, though. It does depend on the environment. So if you're not in a turbo friendly kind of situation, it's going to probably be a little less impressive. And let me see. All right, my mouse was being weird for a second. If you watched last week, the mouse died. I made sure the mouse was charged this week, so we were good, but it just had a connection issue there for a second. But I appreciate it. I just saw the other super chats coming in here. Thanks, Luke, for a super chat. I really appreciate it. He says, I like the torque in the Tacoma, but the SR5 felt bouncy compared to the Frontier. I was annoyed I had to download the Toyota app for Bluetooth audio. That's weird. Did the dealer tell you to do that? Because I don't think that's true. I don't know. I haven't heard that one before. I'm pretty sure Bluetooth audio should work, because I guess it just always goes to CarPlay every time I sync my phone to one of these, Toyota press vehicles. But I don't know why you would need the Toyota app for Bluetooth audio. That's interesting. But yeah, I mean, SR5, as far as that goes, it's definitely bouncy. Especially, I think you're not really. And SR5 isn't set up the same way as the Pro 4X that I think you said you tested for the Frontier, which is going to be a little tighter, a little more off-road oriented, and a little bit more composed. I think there's some nicer hardware there on the Pro 4X that you don't get with a regular SR5. I'd say, I'd try and go for like a Tier D off-road package or something like that to do a more apples-to-apples comparison on the ride quality and the suspension, if that's, was, again, another sticking point for you. But again, if Frontier is gonna be way cheaper and easier, and everything else seems a little bit more of an easy kind of transition, for you to, if Frontier seems more comfortable, then go with that. I think that's also something I probably should mention more whenever I, give advice about cars to people, is like, there's some times where, like, either it's something that, just for whatever reason, like, there's people that have all kinds of, odd little things that, are really like must-have features. Like, my sister must have a gas pedal mounted to the floor in whatever she's owning. Otherwise, it's just like she hates it. Like, no one else cares about that but my sister and probably 5 other people in the country. But there's all those types of little things. And so if there's little things that, set one off compared to the other, even if I think that one is better than the other, again, if it works better for you, if it just has that comfort factor, for whatever reason, go with your gut, go with what feels right. And that's why test drives are so important, especially when you can do them well and you don't have a salesman breathing down your neck and being annoying. But if you can, kind of breathe and really feel out the vehicle, if it feels like home to you, take it home, because I think you don't want to overthink that kind of a decision, or say, well, like, these people say this one's better or this, that, or the other. Like, just go with, what feels good to you. And most likely that will be the right choice for you. And for sometimes it's even just like scratching an itch that, no matter what people say, it's just, for me, it was the Mini. Like, the Mini was like, my buddy had a Mini and it seemed like a lot of fun. I always kind of wanted one. That was another kind of getting back to the movie edition things, having a Mini that kind of looked like the ones in the Italian Job. And just, it was just a fun new thing to try. And, again, I had heard about how bad they are reliability wise, especially those R56s. But, I wanted to try it. I thought I'd have good luck like my buddy did, who had like one of the most reliable Minis ever made, it seems. But it was just one of those things I just had to get out of my system. Like, I need to try this. I want to do this. It's just something I want to get, because it was something I was excited about. And so sometimes even that, I'm not saying that's the case with you, Luke, but there's a lot of times with people where they got to just try it. They got to just climb that mountain, and then they will have climbed it, and then, see where they're at on the other side. But like, even that though, again, I did it myself. That's something that has merit. And I think it's important to, check those bucket list things off that you want to do or that you feel like you need to. There's something to be said for that satisfaction as well. And also, too, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, Mitsu gets a Frontier from Nissan, builds new Raider. Dodge, hey, Mitsu, remember when we helped you with your last truck? Dodge gets new Dakota. Nissan, I mean, I guess our truck is a success, right? I mean, I think Frontier is certainly a success, though. There's a lot of people that love them, and I think they sell pretty well for what it is. Again, being still on a kind of dated platform that's been just updated. I think Frontier actually is punching above its weight class for what it is working with, honestly. But yeah, it's funny how Mitsubishi's kind of relied on other companies for all their trucks recently. And so, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I think there actually was rumors months ago, I remember reporting on that Mitsubishi was going to get a truck from somebody. But I can't remember. I think it was Nissan, but I think it was maybe for like the next gen Frontier, like whenever an electric Nissan truck comes or something. I don't remember, but maybe we'll see a Mitsubishi truck someday. I mean, they have the great one overseas that they can't sell here because of the chicken tax, but it'd be great to see them find a way to bring a truck over here. I think that would really help them with sales for sure. And let me see. Cars says the car market has changed a lot since I bought my first new car, a 2005 Kia Rio, for about $12,000. My choices were Chevy Aveo, Kia Rio, and Toyota Yaris. I chose the Rio for price and warranty. Nice, and hopefully it treated you well. I'd be curious to hear how the Rio did for you, because I think, my brother-in-law had a Rio. Yeah, it was a Rio, and his was not good. It was the dual clutch generation for him, and the dual clutch was crap. The motor was like burning oil and just like gunked up and just not good. I mean, maybe the prior owner just didn't take very good care of it. I don't know, but he did not have a good experience with his Rio. Vishal says, hey, Matt, any other info come out on the 2025 Jettas? Really interested in it as a potential next car, as the Passat is a hand-me-down from my parents, and I got to give that back eventually. I don't think anything new since the press release from a couple of weeks ago, so that's going to be all the info for now, and probably for a little while, but I think they're coming pretty quickly. I thought they were arriving at dealers like as we speak, so might be worth doing a Auto Trader search for 2025 Jettas and see if there's anything out there. Maybe you could swing by a nearby dealer. Maybe they were starting to pop up on the lot and you can try it out for yourself, but I think they're supposed to come pretty fast if I remember correctly. As far as my experience, as far as when I'm going to get one to drive, it's going to be a while at this point with how backlogged I am and what I already know I have scheduled press car wise into September. I have no Jettas into September, so it's going to be a while before I get a chance to drive one. They'll most likely be on dealer lots well before I ever post a review, unfortunately. So I'm probably not going to give you too much info, unfortunately, until later, much later this year. Might even be something that ends up being a 2025 review for me. We'll have to see. But I'm excited for the Jetta personally. I think it's great that they kept the price pretty low, and just kind of stuck to the same formula, which has been working for them very well recently. So hope that continues to do well for them. Austin says Fiesta ST already, so didn't need two manual vehicles. Gotcha. As far as getting the auto Abarth, actually has more torque and an extra gear than the manual, so better for a daily driver. Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I honestly, it's been so long since I even drove the 500 Abarth, because I reviewed one that was modded. I think that one was a manual, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I definitely have driven auto ones before. It was still a fun experience. Yeah, just it's a bit more relaxed. And B. Mitchell says, fully agree on your views on free choice on manual versus auto. The founder publisher of Sport Car Compact magazine had a stroke 5 years ago, and since he can't lift his left leg, he's forced into autos. Yeah, and there's a lot of that as well, and it's stuff that's, it'd be sad to have these people not be able to enjoy performance cars if the manual elitists out there wanted to make everything manual only and all this stuff. Like, yeah, I think autos are great, and no hate from me at all for an automatic, that's for sure. Rafi, thanks for joining in. He says, woohoo, hi, Matt. Austin's saying Abarth Auto in sport mode does decel abrupt downshifts with crackles and pops. Seems pretty responsive to driver input as well. Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's something I wouldn't mind revisiting someday as well, because 500 Abarths are always a fun time. So I wouldn't mind driving another one someday if I ever find time to do more privately owned car reviews, or if even one gets traded in at the dealership that I work with, sometimes. And Two Track Jack says, I appreciate the mention of some people being unable to drive a manual due to injury. We are often overlooked. Well, I'm sorry to hear that that's your reality as well, Jack. But yeah, I mean, again, this is just, I mean, it's the internet, right? Everyone's very ignorant and doesn't, have a full picture of anything. It's just people making, off the cuff, stupid comments many times, and as we know, the internet is not a good place for sensible conversations and comments. Trent Carguy says, my Lancer is the definition of nothing special. There you go. But it's a solid little car for you, I'm sure. And so, there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. Dylan says there's a Lucid dealership here in Massachusetts. Cool. So good to know there's others outside of California. I know there aren't any in Pittsburgh proper, I don't think, unless I'm unaware and it's under my nose and I don't even know it or something. But I think they are pretty rare, though, honestly. Let me see. Rafi says, I did a thing yesterday. I traded in my FK8 for a DE5, and wow, what a change. I'm happy. The deal was way too good to pass up. 49 grand with 1,000 miles and 1.99% interest. I think it's insane. Wow. So I'm assuming it's used and it's got 1,000 miles on it. I mean, 1.99 on a used purchase is wild these days. I mean, it's wild at any point in time, even before interest rates were crazy. So yeah, that is... It's a very good deal, I think. So congrats. Yeah, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, Ruffy, you were kind of in the FK8 camp, for a while from our past conversations, but I'm glad you're happy with the upgrade. Yeah, it's I mean, I love FK8. It's fantastic for sure, but the new ones are really, 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 really good. Yeah, and I see there's been a few others floating around the press fleet again. I'm like trying to come up with an excuse as to why I would want to cover one again. Just I personally just want to drive one again because they're fantastic cars. So congrats, that's awesome, and glad you got such a great deal too. That's really fun, and I hope it treats you very well and you have a blast with it for a long time to come. Yeah, Austin agrees. He says, yeah, I was ready to walk out, and that's what kept me in. They did stiff me a little on the trade, but on the interest rate, I felt like it was worth it. Nice. Well, yeah, glad it worked out for you. That's awesome. Let me see. Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Ford Maverick sport truck looks awesome. Would Honda benefit with a sport truck edition of the Ridgeline? Less car-like looks. Yeah, I think, they tried to amp it up more with, the refresh to the Ridgeline to make it more trucky, but absolutely. I think the sport truck thing, copy and paste what they did with the Maverick and copy and paste that to every truck out there. I think Toyota especially, they are, I mean, what is it called? The X-Runner, I think was what they called, or X-Track, not X-Track. I think it was X-Runner for the sport truck version of the Tacoma way back when. But I think Toyota is prime, especially since they have the manual option for Tacoma and they already have TRD Sport, which probably should have been lowered from the beginning anyway. But take TRD Sport, call it something else, slam it, and that's it. You're done. And then I think that would be awesome. But yeah, Ridgeline would be a great candidate. Any of them, I think it'd be cool to see on Ranger. I think it'd be cool to see any of them. Frontier, take your pick. I think they all would be fantastic as sport trucks. I'd love to see sport trucks come back. And thank you, Jordan, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Let me see. Mitchell says, I've heard that a lot of Uber drivers rent rather than buy their Tesla, supposedly cheaper than buying, and they run them hard for a couple weeks, then turn them back in. Interesting. I just know that I follow the Mileage Impossible page on Facebook, and there's a lot of Tesla commenters in there that are saying, they got 300,000 miles on it and original battery, and it's still doing really good. And some people have had like a single battery replacement under warranty with some of those older Teslas that were grandfathered into that like lifetime battery warranty thing or whatever. And those are the ones to get if you're, an Uber driver, because then you can just kind of milk that for all it's worth. So yeah. I mean, I think also, what was the other thing I was going to say? I mean, yeah, there's a Mileage Impossible. There's been a bunch of just high mileage. I mean, I feel like I see more like high mileage Tesla posts than a lot of other vehicles outside of like maybe Toyotas or something on that Mileage Impossible page, which was actually fascinating this week. There was also just a little minor tangent. Two people posted about two Hyundais. Usually you hear a lot of people complaining about Hyundai reliability. And there was a Sonata that showed it was like a 2022 Sonata, like the current generation, with like 340,000 miles on it or something, that had one engine replacement. But still, even if you split that up and you divide that mileage in half from a 2022 Sonata, you're still talking about a very respectable amount of miles on a single motor. And again, I don't know when that was replaced, so whether one had more or less, I don't know. But like either way, you're talking at the very least each motor doing roughly 160, 170,000 miles, something like that. I mean, so that's kind of encouraging considering everyone badmouths Hyundai motors and stuff. And then there's also someone who was another Hyundai, I think, or maybe it was a Kia, but something like that also had like 300,000 miles, and it was like totally solid, fine, totally good. And there's also, even just the other day, someone that had I saw, it was kind of funny, their license plate, it was a Ford Fiesta. It wasn't a Hyundai, but it was a Ford Fiesta, like the kind with a crap transmission. And maybe he had a manual, and that's part of why they were able to keep it going longer. But they had a sticker, and their license plate was like 200, like there's 7 digits here in PA. I'm not sure how many digits they had. Maybe it was 7. Then they added extra zeros after the license plate for how many miles it had. It had like over 200,000 miles, and it looked like that sticker had been on there for a long time. So it's probably well beyond that at this point. But they were still kicking with a little Fiesta, and I'm like, man, seeing that generation Fiesta with over 200,000 miles is another feat in and of itself. So if you treat a car right and you take care of it, sometimes you get lucky and you have these really high mileage things, even for things that might not necessarily be super high mileage. But Teslas, again, I don't give them a lot of credit because they have a lot of faults, and many of you have heard my Tesla rants before, but I got to give them credit for mileage. It seems like those things actually do really go the distance pretty well. Maybe everything else about it falls apart, but it seems like the powertrains are pretty solid, generally speaking, on those. And Jay, I see. So yeah, there's something with your username, because the one comment didn't come up with your member badge, but then the other one did. So must be a different account. But I think you're good now, Jay. So hopefully it works. Sorry if I missed any other prior questions from you there. B. Mitchell also says FCA and Stellantis is well known for not supporting warranty replacements for engines and transmissions going back to pre-pandemic. Gotcha. Yeah, it's tough because, I mean, again, I think they're maybe justified sometimes, but there's other times where it's just like, yeah, are you just being cheap, or are you just, being crappy? Because oftentimes that's what these companies like to try and do is, whatever they can do to screw somebody and save a penny, that's always good. I'm sure those warranty denial people probably get a bonus if they keep costs to a certain level and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's not great when that kind of stuff happens, for sure. And Jay also says, hey, Matt, hope all has been well for the Marans. I appreciate that. Hope everything's been okay with you as well, Jay, in the past couple of weeks here. He says the CT4V test drive was great. Better, smaller, and compact than my R. The magnesium paddles felt great to the touch. Didn't get to get on it as hard. I'm glad you enjoyed it. He said salesman was an age 60s man. Didn't want him to crap his pants, but shifts great and caught up to speed quicker than I expected. I'm going for 32,000 with about 40,000 on the clock. Not too many used in my area, so thoughts are still up in the air. Gotcha. Well, glad you're able to test drive one. It was enjoyable. Yeah, I think that's what I really love about the CT4 is just how small and compact it is, but it's still a sedan that still is actually fairly usable, at least depending on the size of the people up front there, as far as backseat space and stuff. But I think CT4 is kind of underappreciated. Actually, I saw what I believe is my first CT4V Blackwing out in the wild just yesterday, and I thought I'd see way more of those out there. And I see Blackwing CT5s every once in a while, but I don't ever see the 4s, and it's like such a slept-on car. I mean, the regular V is great too, but I mean, I thought for sure the Blackwings would make a bigger dent as far as the CT4, but seems like there's not a lot of takers, at least in my area, which is a shame because it's so good. The manual is so good in those. It's a great motor. It's a great chassis. It's just, oh man, and everyone just goes and phones it in with an M3 they buy instead. It's just, much rather have a CT4, I think. And Good Stick says, speaking of FCA, the Chrysler 200 was a horrible sedan. The engines are so unreliable and the quality was atrocious compared to the Camry and Accord. I mean, that I don't know. I mean, I don't see a whole lot of those out in the wild, so I am inclined to believe and agree with you with that. But then I've seen, I think actually, another member, Nathaniel, he I believe has a 200, and I think if I remember correctly, he's got a lot of miles on it, and it's treated him really well. And I've heard a few other people say like their 200 has been great. It was like really got an undeserved reputation. Um, so I'm not sure. I mean, as far as 200 goes, I mean, it's the Pentastar V6, which is actually a pretty bulletproof engine. They last a long time if you take care of them, and that's what I believe was in most of those 200s. It was either that or the Tiger Shark, I believe, 2.4 4-cylinder. Maybe that motor wasn't as great. So maybe it's the V6 ones or the Play. I don't know, but I always liked the 200. I reviewed one way back when they were new, and I thought it was really an impressive sedan. And the first couple of years, I saw them everywhere, and then like they all vanished. And so I'm assuming they're just off the road and weren't good quality. But I don't know. I feel like I really like the 200. I don't know. I guess that's an unpopular opinion, maybe, but I thought they were great. Let me see. Stratus says Oppenheimer was great. Yes, Oppenheimer was really good. I did really enjoy it. I think I might have had slightly too high of expectations for it. It was still very good, and I really liked it. But I don't know. I think it's just because Christopher Nolan, I'm such a huge fan of his. I don't even know what I was expecting, but I was expecting to be wowed, I guess, a little bit more. Like I really went to the length of like hunting down an IMAX theater to watch it in and stuff. And I feel like that's, probably was kind of a wasted effort. I don't know if IMAX was crucial for that one. But it was still really cool. I really enjoyed Oppenheimer. It was definitely worth watching, especially again with these days of polarization that we're in, just realizing the magnitude of nukes and stuff is definitely a wise thing to be educated on, I think. But let me see. Good Stick says electric cars are the ultimate daily drivers. They just need minimal maintenance. Sports cars are good weekend cars. Yeah, I think that's really the thing about EVs that's great is they are very good appliances, and it's just, I agree. It's a really good thing. And then the sports cars are, always fun on the weekends too. And Jay says the digital cluster was amazing as well. Didn't get to test the V button as much as I wanted. Yeah, the V button's great to have all your preset drive mode selections there, and it's always just one press away. It's a really cool little handy thing to have, I guess. And Luke says dealer told me I had to when I tried to connect on the test drive. Interesting. I have a Land Cruiser in the driveway right now. I'm like tempted to like disconnect my phone and just try and do old school Bluetooth because actually because even in because I just did this a few days ago in the Land Cruiser. When you connect your phone, it says, do you want to have CarPlay or do you want to go Bluetooth audio instead? And I always just say CarPlay, but there's been a time in the past where I was just like, I don't know why I didn't want to do CarPlay or whatever, but I remember connecting and it just went to Bluetooth instead. And even before the prior, before Toyota did wireless CarPlay and everything, just whenever it was wired CarPlay, and I wouldn't bother with that. I would just do Bluetooth streaming and it was fine. So yeah, I don't know. That's weird. I mean, I guess the dealer should know that, but yeah, I don't know. Something doesn't add up there. I don't know what's going on with that. But Linda says, my husband did a test drive in an empty parking lot. He hit the brake hard and did an emergency turn just to see handling in an emergency. I laughed and the salesman had a cow. That's awesome. That's a very fun way to keep a salesman on his toes. That's funny. Yeah, for anyone that doesn't have a lot of test drive experience, I would recommend always being very vocal about what you're going to do. And in the past, before I was back when I used to actually just like test drive vehicles before, reviewing them, I often found that salesmen would let you do more and let you be more aggressive with your test drive if you were communicating with them and they knew what you were doing, because they want to know that you're not some nut job that's going to scare them. And so, if you're like, okay, like I want to test acceleration here at this next light, and then you give them a warning, and you say, okay, I want to test handling here. I'm going to do a little bit of swerving, and like, give them a heads up on all this stuff. Just again, make them feel comfortable with what's happening, and so they at least are prepared. And I think that's always what I have done in the past on test drives, just to kind of put them at ease, so they don't like scream at you and tell you to turn around and go straight back to the dealership. Communication is key. But it makes for a great story and a good laugh there if you scare them too. B. Mitchell says, Jingling Oktoberfest number 3. Hey, the 2019 Mustang GT registered 696.9 miles in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin today. Very nice. And glad you're continuing to enjoy this Oktoberfest. And yeah, now I got a craving for one. I'm gonna have to go out and get one of those here this week. Cars says the Rio's automatic transaxle went out within about a year when it slammed into second gear under hard acceleration on a very cold morning. Thank goodness for my warranty. Man, well, I'm glad they honored it, and I'm glad that it I guess held up beyond that. But that's that's crazy. And Hyper Shadow says 2025 Volkswagen GLI is my current attainable dream car. It kind of looks like my Mark 6 Jetta from the front. I've always thought it had the cleanest look, so when the refresh was revealed, slobbering. Nice. Yeah, that's again, you got the great manual transmission option that you can't get anymore in the GTI. So I think GLI is actually going to take on a new life as more appealing now for people who want a manual Volkswagen. It's the only game in town now. So I think that'll hopefully help GLI sales. We'll see. And I hope that encourages Volkswagen to build more of the manuals there and maybe make them reconsider the other stuff that they got rid of. Also, Cars is responding to Jordan saying, I expect the compact sport truck segment to be a hot market. I hope it comes back. That would be great. That'd be so awesome. Austin says, GLI seems like a better deal than the GTI these days. I think GTI build quality is still a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, if you are in the manual camp, I mean, then, GTI is kind of not an option after this year. But yeah, I mean, GLI is always... It's just a little different. Like, you have more ambient lighting in the GLI. You can get the cooled seats. Well, I guess you can get that in the GTI too. It comes down to personal preference. But I know, like, for me, you have a bigger back seat in the GLI. You have a bigger trunk. Realistically speaking, you have more length there than you get in GTI. The seats fold down too, and all that. So I mean, yeah, GLI to me has always been kind of it's lived in the shadow of GTI, kind of unfairly in my opinion. Because GTI gets all the glory, and I feel like GLI deserves a little bit more of the limelight sometimes. And B. Mitchell says the Lobo really has me interested in the Maverick now. Thinking a set of dedicated winter tires on Steelers would make a killer winter truck. Then again, I'm also on Yingling number 3. Yeah, I mean, I think your problem there, if you are dealing with Minnesota and Wisconsin winters, is ground clearance with Lobo will be your problem there. I mean, as long as the roads are, I guess, somewhat plowed, you'd be all right, unless you want to do your own plowing there in the Lobo. Then put a little what is it? Why can't I'm blanking on that word? Shovel on the front there, and then you can because those things seem like they sit fairly low, and probably don't have a ton of ground clearance. That'd be the only thing I would say. But I'm sure you can debate the proposition a little bit better post Yanglings, but. Hyper Shadow says GLI definitely does seem like a better deal than the GTI, even though I still love the GTI. Yeah, I agree. Dylan says Stellantis refused warranty work on a dude's Ram because he had pedal commander in the glove compartment, not even plugged in. Used to be a Dodge diehard. I'm not while Stellantis is in charge. I mean, the pedal commander is a sketchy mod, in my opinion, though, for sure, because it's just a piggyback thing, and it just tricks the car into doing things that the car should not be doing. I've always kind of looked down on the pedal commander stuff personally. I mean, I'm no expert, so maybe I'm ignorant in the matter, especially these days when I'm not super into the mod scene as much anymore. But I mean, I remember when that stuff was coming out for the Mustangs, and I just remember, yeah, it's like a guaranteed like warranty voider. And I get the whole idea is like, yeah, like you can unplug it really easily. And I don't know if modern ECUs like still get imprinted by it or not to, leave a trace. But to leave it in the glove compartment, I mean, that's still like, it's a giveaway. Like, why would you have the glove compartment if you didn't use it? Like, so I don't know. I mean, the pedal commander thing is absolutely something that can screw your car up in a bad way. So like, to me, again, maybe unpopular opinion, for the mod crowd, but like I think that warranty claim being refused is kind of justified to me. Because I mean, a company shouldn't be liable for people messing around with their own vehicles. Once it's not stock anymore, again, within reason, obviously an exhaust is not going to screw up the engine, or, other things that are clearly from a different, area of the vehicle that should be unaffected. But I mean, pedal commander is directly like tricking your vehicle into more boost, quicker throttle response, all these things that it's not engineered for. So yeah, I think, once you start to play, then, you're on the hook for that stuff. And I don't have much sympathy for people that try and, I guess trick their way into warranty coverage on something that, probably shouldn't be warranted, honestly. Austin says, what does Lobo mean? Anyone? It's got some semi-problematic definitions according to Google. Yeah, I don't know why they picked Lobo either. I'm unfortunately ignorant about that as well, so I don't know. So I'm not even going to attempt to say. It's a new word for me, basically, so I don't know. I'm sure there'd be other people more qualified to give thoughts on that, but I know nothing about that, honestly. Jay says, I don't think I've seen a single Blackwing CT4V or CT5V in Minnesota yet, oddly enough. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, they're, again, expensive, pretty rare cars, so I don't expect a ton of them. But yeah, there are a few CT5V Blackwings around here, and every time I see one, I'm like, my man, he got a CT5V Blackwing and didn't just buy an M5 like every other doctor that wants a fast vehicle or something like that. But let me see. And Austin says the Nuke was a disappointment in Oppenheimer. Yeah, I did think the Nuke would have more impact. I mean, I think, again, there's only so much you can do in a movie theater, even an IMAX one. But yeah, it was a little bit lackluster, I know as well. Two Track Jack says, my 2014 Town Country is just shy of 200,000 miles with that V6 now and still running strong. That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard pretty good things about the Pentastar. So again, for those 200s that were equipped with that, should not have any mechanical issues, I don't think. Maybe the transmission, I think maybe that's probably the Achilles heel of maybe the 200s, because I think they have the ZF9 speed, which is one of the worser ones. So maybe that's what's been killing all the 200s. I don't know. Austin says, how's Beth these days, Matt? Has been on the live stream in a while. Yeah, she's doing okay. It's been a whirlwind here the past few months, and been very busy, and she's just trying to get always stay caught up on everything with having a toddler in the house, a 3-year-old here. She gives us a run for our money, so it's a blast, and it's so much fun, but it's a lot of work. So a lot of times she's just catching up on laundry and all those types of things, but she wants to come back for another live stream here soon, so hopefully that's something we can make happen here in the relatively near future. We'll see. And Luke, thank you for another super chat. He says, I think they used the Lobo because ST means more power and Lobo has no more power. I wish they did an ST and dropped a 2.3 in the Maverick. Yeah, I mean, that'd be an easy thing to do too. Like, I mean, they already have ST brakes from the Focus ST. You already have the suspension pretty much sorted out. You put the rear diff in. They did, honestly, most of the hard work for an ST already. I mean, I'd argue probably you'd want to put some sportier seats in. But these are all things, again, they could phone this stuff in from the Focus ST in Europe. I mean, I know that's going away in Europe, so maybe the supply chain is ending for some of that stuff, but didn't stop them from using the brakes. So why not use the other stuff, from the parts bin there? So yeah, it wouldn't have been hard. I mean, not even they could have even just bumped the 2 liters boost a little bit. And I mean, I feel like that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities, but yeah, sure, put the 2.3 in if you want. I think the problem with the 2.3, I think Maverick is transverse mounted, right? I don't think it's longitudinal, versus 2.3 is longitudinal. So that orientation change would make it really tough for putting that in the Maverick. But again, there's no reason why they can't bump the 2 liter to more power. Or even, what did the Fusion Sport? I think they in that put the 2.7 in. That'd probably be a little overboard, but if they really wanted to go crazy, maybe try and squeeze that in or something. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, they could have still called it ST line or something like that, and made it like an ST light and just not have the power or something. And I see Ernesto saying Lobo is what they called the F-150 in Mexico. So then that also makes no sense as far as why they put that on the Maverick. Yeah, I mean, it's Ford, so I don't expect them to make very rational decisions all the time. So I don't know. That's interesting. And let me see. Good Stick says, if you think about it, the first SUV truck was the Chevy Avalanche. And these trucks are mocked endlessly. Another SUV truck is the Lincoln Mark LT. I think those are great. And I mean, as far as other SUV trucks being mocked, I mean, I know Ridgeline gets a lot of crap, at times, but I think, the thing with the SUV trucks is like the Avalanche and stuff are okay in most people's books because it's still body on frame, and that's kind of the defining thing for a truck. And so as long as you have that, everything else can be forgiven, I think, in most truck buyers' minds. But yeah, I mean, Avalanches were cool. I'm still kind of surprised that there's no Escalade truck, because so I have the Land Cruiser this week as the press vehicle. I also have a GMC Sierra 1500 Denali, and it's really super nice, and it kind of makes you question, do you need to have a Cadillac truck? But these days, I feel like they're kind of missing some money on the table potentially with not doing another Escalade EXT or something like that. I mean, maybe we'll see, a variant of the, electric Silverado or something like that, and put Escalade IQ EXT on the back of that or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting, like, that they don't go for even more luxury, than GMC with those. And let me see. Linda, thank you so much for a super chat. She says, I agree on giving the salesman a heads up. He did laugh after having a cow. We ended up buying a car from him, so it ended well for the salesman. Nice. Well, that's good that it all ended up working out for him, even if it gave him a little bit of a scare there. But that's cool. And thanks, Linda, for the super chat. And Mike says, assuming the Ioniq 5N doesn't count, do you think ID GTI will be the first electric hot hatch, or Tesla's new $25,000 EV will probably have a performance version before ID GTI? I mean, I think the $25,000 Tesla is still a reach. I mean, maybe they will actually be quick about that, but I mean, we're talking about Tesla. Look at how long it takes them to do anything. I think if we were to speculate on what could come before ITGTI or IDGTI, I think you could see maybe Ford do a sporty version of their $25,000 car, because I have more faith in Ford putting it out before Tesla does, honestly. And just because it doesn't seem like it's a real priority for Tesla. And I mean, again, they got all these other things going on versus Ford. Jim Farley's being like, we got to quit making trucks. We got to go to the cheap stuff. And he's very passionate, it seems, about that $25,000 EV. So to me, maybe that's where we see the return of ST. Maybe we will see Focus return as an electric again. And maybe there's a new Focus ST. Maybe that's part of why Focus is going away in Europe potentially as well. I don't know. That's just off the cuff speculation. But, maybe that is part of it is, they're going to do something like that. And then, again, it's so much easier with EVs, especially with all the motors being powerful off the shelf. Basically anything with it, even there's a normal electric motor these days, would qualify as a hot hatch powertrain, that kind of power level. So, I think that could potentially beat IDGTI to the punch, especially if Volkswagen continues to drop the ball with their software issues and delaying everything because they can't seem to hire a good coder. I think that that could be the thing. But I mean, I'd love to see Tesla do a $25,000 car, at some point here this decade as well. And we will see what happens. I think this next week we're supposed to actually finally see, or is it October is when we see the Robotaxi? I can't remember, but hopefully, maybe that'll be a preview of what the $25,000 thing will be as well. I don't know. And Hyper Shadow says, since Jay mentioned the CT4 earlier, I sat in a CT4V Blackwing like 2 weeks ago, and OMG, the interior, it was red, white, and blue, but it could have been pink, green, and brown. I loved it. Nice. Yeah, they're great. I didn't know you could get that color combo. That is bold on a Blackwing. But yeah, Blackwing is pure magic. Doesn't get enough attention or credit or sales. And it's available with a manual. So anyway, Good Stick says, GMC Cyclone, anyone? I am there for that. Absolutely. It's talking about the sport truck things. Slam a Canyon, call it the Cyclone, and those already have a bunch of power. You don't even need to do more power. I mean, you could if you wanted and actually do the same thing as they did back then and make it as fast as a modern Ferrari. That'd be a tall order these days. But I mean, we were talking about non-prime Ferrari days whenever that happened with GMC. But I'd love to see a Cyclone come back. Yeah, these are all the things that I'm sure they'd sell 1,000 of them if they're lucky, and that'd be the end of it. But it'd be fun if I didn't have the restrictions of being a profitable company. Hyper Shadow says CT4V Blackwing interior for the win forever. Yeah, it's a good interior. It's not super luxurious, and I'm sure that's why people go and buy the BMW that everyone else buys. But man, Blackwing is great. Hyper Shadow also says, I'm sure there was a ton of better interiors. But I said what I said. I totally support it. Yeah, Jay's saying, I felt like Uncle Sam would be driving around after he got his pay cut in the CT4. Yeah, it's again, I think they're definitely improving. I mean, CT5's got a nice refresh. We'll see if CT4 gets the same kind of big screens and all that. I think that should help a little bit, but I know the materials and stuff in CT4 aren't amazing. Yeah, it just comes down to how much of an enthusiast you are as far as if you value the extra sharpness of the chassis over maybe the rougher interior materials or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. To me, they're not that bad in the CT4 or CT5. Totally fine for me, at least. And Vishal says, my 2021 Highlander hit 30,000 miles today, barely broken in for a Toyota. Looking forward to many more miles of the V6. That's awesome. Glad you're enjoying it and glad it's treating you well. Hyper Shadow, thanks for saying Lobo is Spanish for wolf. I don't even know why wolf makes sense either. I don't know. To me, it's still like a strange choice. But I don't know. Maybe there's a cultural thing I'm missing there. B. Mitchell says, Jay, now that you mention it, I haven't seen any in the Twin Cities, but I've actually seen a few out in North Dakota. And it seems like every Navigator sold between Chicago and Billings is in North Dakota. Nice. Yeah, and I'm excited. I'm actually going to be in Minneapolis in a couple of weeks here for a drive, and so I'm looking forward to. I've never actually I've always connected through Minneapolis many times, but I've never actually spent time on the ground in Minneapolis. So I'm actually looking forward to. It's not a lot of time. I think I'm gonna be there for like 24 hours. It's gonna be jam packed with stuff that I gotta do, but hopefully I get to at least see the surroundings a little bit and get a little bit of a better feel for it than I have, just from an airplane and the airport in the past. Austin's bringing up there's a potential other slangs for what Lobo means. And Jay says, C8 Corvettes are everywhere in the Twin Cities, though. Austin's hoping for an El Camino and Ranchero return. That would be great. I mean, I would argue that Ranchero is kind of what Maverick is these days. But it'd be cool to see like an actual legit like two-door that they call Ranchero or something. Would be fun. El Camino. I'm so sad that there was reports that an El Camino was in development at Chevy, and then I think the idea got canned or got delayed until the 2030s because of, again, just them trying to slow down their EV roll a little bit. But it sounded like there was a potential El Camino thing in the works, and I think that might have gotten killed off, which would be such a disappointment if that's actually true, because again, there's so many cool things GM could do, and I think copy and paste the Maverick recipe. Somebody do it. It's not rocket science, I don't think. I mean, I don't know. Again, easier said than done, I guess, but it's just crazy that we don't have a bunch of Maverick copycats out there. Hyper Shadow says, quote, Ford, we make no sense in our naming. Also, we don't make electric vehicles. This message is brought to you by the Mustang Mach-E. Haven't checked in with our CEO lately. Hope all's well with him. Yeah, well, he was at the Aspen Ideas Festival or something, and I was talking about this in the weekly update, I think 2 weeks ago, that he is saying they need to quit making monster trucks and that they need to go back to these smaller, more affordable things if they want to actually have mass EV adoption, which, like, yeah, no crap. Like you only sell so many super expensive giant trucks before you run out of buyers, and you know, you have a lot more people that can afford $25,000 cars. So, yeah, but I know his comments were strange before about we don't make electric Mustangs. And it's like, yeah, according to you, you do. But anyway, he says, I need to leave the Ford CEO alone. It's fun whenever they go on these bizarre tangents that just don't make any sense. And Austin says Ford is kind of a dead brand for me right now. They don't make anything compelling anymore. I mean, I like our Mach-E a lot, though. You know, even though I don't like the Mustang name on it, it's a good appliance. It's a good baby hauler, you know, family vehicle kind of deal. And but yeah, I mean, I think with most of the other Ford competitors, I would probably take a competitor before I take a Ford. And for most of the other things that they offer, there are a few exclusions, I'd say, where I think they make some really top-notch stuff. But, you know, especially like, I mean, right now they have Raptor R. Like, it's the coolest super truck now. The TRX is gone and Chevy refuses to play ball. So, you know, there's still some redeeming things to me. But yeah, largely it's a lot of just okay stuff. I mean, I think Maverick is also a brilliant idea. And I really commended them when that first came out for being super cheap, getting super good fuel economy, and still just being honest about the fact that, like, this is all the truck that a lot of people actually need. So I really respected them for that. And Jordan, I apologize, I missed your super chat earlier. Sorry for the wait, but he says, Stellantis EV hybrid tech in-house or sourced? I think it's a mix. I don't remember the specifics. I think they're buying batteries. As far as motors, again, I think there's some ZF collaboration, if I remember correctly, but I think some of the stuff is unique to them. And of course, their platform is unique with STLA, you know, having the flexibility to do gas and electric is, you know, kind of on the same kind of vehicle. You know, there's some of those things, but I think that a lot of the stuff, it is still supplier based. For most of those, it is. I don't know of too many companies that are making their own motors. Again, I don't know all the specifics, but I think, you know, Tesla and a couple others are really some of the only ones that actually do. So it's not super common. You know, Lucid does their own motors, and a few others, but not a ton. And Jay says, funny how the Honda's Hip X concept from the 80s or 90s, I believe, is making a reveal at an auto show this year. It looks better than the new Accords. LMAO. Yeah, that's cool. I saw that that came across. They're going to put that in Monterey there. And was something that they used to preview the first generation NSX. And I'm not sure why they're bringing it out, aside from just being like a cool thing to show off, I guess. It doesn't really, you know, it's not too much trouble to bring it out. But yeah, it kind of makes me wonder if there's some design inspiration maybe there for like their next, you know, their new EVs coming down the road or something. I don't know. But still just cool to see nonetheless. And I see Jay using the little emoji there. I should probably do more of those someday. I just don't know if you guys have any ideas for other member emojis like that you'd like me to make. Let me know. I'm happy to to try to cook up some more. And Carr says, I finally found out why the 2025 Maverick has only 238 horsepower versus 250. We've added a new gas particulate filter to meet emissions requirements, and this reduces the maximum horsepower that we can deliver. Okay, thanks for the info. I appreciate that, Cars. And again, I still don't know why. It's something that happens a lot, I think, in the automotive industry with journalism, where someone says something and then everyone else just runs with it, or everyone just kind of reads off the press release and doesn't question the press release or something. I didn't read the press release for the 2025 Maverick, but you know, like every outlet I was seeing was saying, "Oh, the motor's unchanged. It's 238 horsepower," and I'm like, "That's not what it was before. Why are you saying it's unchanged?" I mean, a particulate filter is a change. I mean, it's not a change to the engine; it's to the emission stuff after the engine. But like, it's still a particulate filter cuts back on power. So, in fact, a 2025 Maverick will be slower than a 2024 or earlier. So, you know, why they swept that under the rug? Like, oh, it's the same. I'm guessing that's just Ford probably giving them a little nudge, and you know, in the press release being like, it's the same, and everyone just kind of ran with it instead of questioning it. But yeah, that's unfortunate, but if that's what they need to do, then you know, you would think they could just still bump power back to 250 to do a little bit more tuning. they're on the turbo or something and get you back to that number. But I mean, again, it's a Maverick. I guess people aren't going to miss 12 horsepower, but still seems kind of strange they didn't just, tweak the tuning a little bit there. Mike says, do you think body on frame trucks will be less popular with EVs and more of the light duty trucks will be just unibody once they're electric? I think that, Chevy's kind of going to be a pioneer for this, and we will see, because I think Silverado EV technically is unibody, right? So I think that will be kind of the deciding, or one of the deciding factors early on here as far as how that goes over. Obviously, again, it's kind of an uphill battle right now with electric trucks, but in time, and I'm saying like 5 years from now, see how that whole thing is fared. Excuse me, and then kind of figure it out at that point. But I mean, as far as which way I think it'll go, yeah, I mean, I think at least in these early years, you're going to see, I think most truck companies skip the body on frame thing, because I think, again, generally speaking, people that are open to electric trucks are people that are also open to things like ridgelines, that are open to unibody things. Because the body on frame argument, I mean, there's some legitimate reasons why, but a lot of those people don't actually use it for the reasons why they need body on frame. I mean, there are certainly some that do, but a lot of people are just like, it's not a real truck, and it's kind of just one of these like, rah, 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 like, things that doesn't really, even though it's based in like facts as far as why it might be better or worse in other ways, it's just like people are essentially having themselves have a crappier ride quality just because they may someday tow something, or they may someday do this, that, or the other. And, in the meantime, they're just going to be punished with a crappier ride because of, whatever reason they think that they have, real or imagined. But, so I think that, right now we're dealing with people that are a little more open-minded. So they're going to be open to unibody trucks. But if you want to convert the ordinary truck buyers, and you want to actually have a hope that they are going to switch over, I mean, we will see how, again, Lightning progresses and how that ages and, what that ends up doing. But I think, eventually you're going to need to swap them over to electric as well. But I think it's going to be a long ways off, and those are going to be some of the most resistant EV buyers who may never switch at all. So, I think it's kind of like you're barking up the wrong tree there kind of thing. So I think sticking with unibody and, having the few body on frame ones, in a very niche kind of capacity, I think is probably the more logical approach. But, it'll be interesting to see how car companies decide to play that. But Jay says, Matt Moran meet in Minneapolis. Woohoo. That would be fun. I know there are a couple of you. Maybe, I could do like a member thing and just post up, if a few of you want to meet for a beer or something. If I have time, I typically don't, especially since this one is so short. Sometimes the press drives that I'm on are like a 2-night thing, but this is a 1-night thing. It's just really quick. It's the company that I don't know if I'm at liberty to say what exactly I'm driving just yet, but the vehicle I'm driving, the company I'm with, they usually like to pack things in pretty tightly. So there's not a whole lot of downtime, which I appreciate because it means I get home sooner and I'm away from my family less. But it just means I don't have a whole lot of time to do anything else. Even on the 2-night things, typically, there's been times in the past where someone's been like, hey, I do an Instagram post or something, and someone's like, oh, swing on by to a car meet or something. And I'm like, I don't have transportation. I don't have free time. I'm either busy editing another video or I'm, swamped with work or something, unfortunately, anyway. So that's usually why I'm not able to do anything like that. But if the stars align in Minneapolis, I'll maybe do a post and see if I can throw something together, very last minute. But I wouldn't hold your breath for that, unfortunately. Again, I'm usually just so swamped that any spare moment where I'm not doing something where I'm required to be somewhere or do something, I'm usually staring at my laptop, slaving away on the next video edit or whatever. So it's not a whole lot of free time. It's even, crazy. Like I went, even with the Toyota event last year when we were in Hawaii for Grand Highlander, I was in Hawaii. That was for 5 days. That's way longer than any of the other trips, and that was, there was a few things. We were doing Grand Highlander. There was also the reveal of Tacoma. And I think that was it. It was just those two things. But it was just like doing those two things and then trying to keep up with my normal editing workload that I always had to do. I had to do a weekly update while I was there. All those things. I mean, I had a very nice view for the times when I wasn't out driving the Grand Highlander or wasn't filming the Tacoma. I was back in my very nice room, but I was just sitting in a hotel room staring out at the ocean. It was a great view for editing, a great view for working on the weekly updates. But I had to like make it a point to like just like spend 30 minutes. I'm like, all right, you know what? I will finish this up later tonight after dinner, and I gotta just go stick my feet in the sand for like 30 minutes on the beach there, and just at least dip my toes in the water while I'm in Hawaii here for 30 minutes. And that's literally all I spent. It was like 30 minutes, then to rush back and get ready for the next dinner and do whatever. I mean, it's just the way it is for me. Other people, I know, like Joe Rady, he had his wife help him with editing, of course. And so they were able to go off. I think they went snorkeling one day or something. They were able to actually have fun and enjoy themselves. But being a one-man crew, I have no such free time, unfortunately. So anyway, sorry for the tangent. But so we will see how Minneapolis plays out. But I'm excited to at least see a little bit of the roads and stuff while I'm doing my work. But let me see. Vishal says GMC Typhoon, honorable mention. That would be great to see return as well for sure. And I see. Thanks, Cars, for quoting the Ford Authority thing there for citing that. I will give them credit for digging in and getting that info. That's great. And let me see. Ernesto saying they need to rebrand the Holden Utes. I wish Holden didn't go down the way they did. That's really was a shame the way all that stuff ended up in Australia. But yeah, I'd love to see that make a return. B. Mitchell says Mark V has a fresh tank of gas. Should you have some time in the Minneapolis area, must be a Mitsu event since it's oddly a strong market for them here. Interesting. I've never been to a Mitsubishi event. It's not a Mitsubishi. I can roll that out. Unfortunately, they don't have anything new on the horizon that I know about. Excuse me. So, but it'd be funny if it was a Mitsubishi thing. Yeah, maybe someday I'll review a new Mitsubishi on a launch. I don't know. I hope that they come out with something new here someday. And Good Stick says, do you think the electric Mini will be more reliable or would it suffer from electrical problems? I mean, British electronics typically haven't had a great track record, right? But I mean, from what I've seen so far, the electric Minis for this, the Mini Cooper SE, the I guess past generation now, seem to have been pretty good. And I mean, the current, I guess I should still say last generation out, the new one is, I think, arriving at dealers. Those, I think what they're called F56 or whatever, those ones are actually really reliable. It's a BMW 2-liter turbo 4, which is pretty solid. They've used a lot of the BMW electronics and stuff as well. So supposedly those new minis are rock solid. And that's why they are a consideration if I were to get another cheap used little runaround thing that's fun. Mini Cooper S is pretty high on the list of considerations, especially since you can get it in a convertible and a manual. And a fun little convertible manual with back seats, which you can't get in a Miata. Otherwise, I'd go Miata. But that makes that a very tempting thing for me, potentially, because I still want to cross off a convertible off the list. At some point, I've always wanted a convertible and never had one. And so that's something I'd like to, have. So we'll see. But anyway, so I think new minis seem like they're pretty reliable, relatively speaking. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says Ford could use a sports wagon with Magnum styling. That would be amazing. I'm all for any wagons anyone wants to send over. That sounds good to me. I'm honestly even just happy that Hyundai decided to do a new Ford Flex, since Ford wouldn't do a new Ford Flex. That's to me, kind of an exciting new wagon in a way with Santa Fe. And it's great that, again, there's something like that shape, it's just a refrigerator on wheels. I think it's great. Let me see. Good Stick also says, did your daughter like the Hummer EV, or was she terrified that a literal house on wheels goes like a stabbed rat? No, she loved the Hummer. Yeah, she always loves accelerations and always tries to egg me on. And I have to explain to her why I can't do a hard acceleration whenever there's cars around and there's people around and things like that. But no, she loved the Hummer EV. Yeah. And, it's not as fast as the truck, so it's a little less impressive, but it still is a lot of power. And again, it's just more dramatic because, again, the way it lifts up the nose and all that stuff. So, yeah, no, she loves especially the electric vehicles because of that instant jolt, but she also had a blast, and I had an Escalade V, what was that? I think at this point, almost 2 years ago now, way back when she she loved the speed. So she is definitely definitely my kid because she just cannot resist an acceleration. And so it's gonna be tricky when she turns 16. I'm gonna have to really drive home the like safety factor. But she seems like she's definitely a fan of accelerations. Um, and let me see. Omar says Nissan should change the Titan name to Zeus if they ever make an EV truck. That'd be cool. Yeah, it'd be fun to see some original names and stuff like that. Sounds very epic, and that could be very fun for sure. It's a good idea. Jay says I saw 1987 Toyota SR5 A86 coupe for sale with a built 1JZ. Definitely a head turner, but the price tag is definitely a little too high for me, unfortunately. Yeah, I feel like a lot of that stuff, it's like they're like the next generation of like the I know what I have crowd that are, maybe asking a little bit too much for stuff, because I feel like a lot of that stuff has just gotten super crazy with pricing. And I think it's probably warranted because they are featured classics, and that's going to be the sought after stuff for I think our younger generations. And so there's probably some merit there, but some of the stuff, yeah, it's crazy what people are asking for cars these days. Hyper Shadow says also, if it were nearby, Matt Moran meetup would be awesome. I'd be down for sure. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'd love to do actual meetups someday. Like if I can someday get a handle on my work-life balance and take my head out of the blender, it'd be great to do some of that stuff, even with Pittsburgh area people, or if I have ever some downtime on some of these things in the future, it'd be great to do stuff like that. I just gotta figure out a way to get quicker with my editing or something. Maybe someday AI will actually do good edits and that'll relieve me of some of the workload. But as of so far, it's nothing AI related. There's all this hype about, you can cut your editing time in half with all this new AI software, and all these companies are trying it. It's all been complete garbage as far as the kind of editing I need done, unfortunately. But if you have an easy edit kind of thing, it is really nice, for some of that stuff. But for me, hasn't cut down my production time at all yet. But I'm hoping someday AI can actually get smart enough to do that. And Austin says, I think it would be cool to see AMC relaunched, even if it was an EV reimagining of their classic designs. Yeah, that'd be great. I'm sure Stellantis at this point isn't looking to launch new brands, but I believe maybe they still have rights to AMC. If that was a package deal with the Jeep stuff and everything, I don't know how that's all changed owners over the years with all these, different with Chrysler, hopping from one lifeboat to the next. I'm not sure how that played out, but yeah, it'd be cool to see AMC come back for a company that needs some space, or even if like Stellantis wants to make some money, sell the AMC brand to China or somebody else who wants to have kind of a somewhat familiar name, instead of some other random thing that people can't pronounce here in the States or something. Like if you have something that's familiar name, I think you're gonna see a lot of that. I think as companies try and make new inroads here in the States, I think you're going to see a lot of we saw this with MG in the UK, that's owned by a Chinese subsidiary that, bought MG. And I think they're actually doing pretty well for at least what I've seen in the UK. They're doing pretty decent new business. And I think that kind of makes some sense, give people a little bit of familiarity with the name and a reputation, to already work off of, and then go from there. And Ace, thanks for joining in here at the tail end, and appreciate you stopping by. Ace, hope you're doing well. Hyper Shadow says aloha to him as well. And Matt's about to go night here since 11 p.m. ish. And let me see. B Mitchell says, Jordan, what do you want as a new flex? Which I'd be game for. Yeah, that's Santa Fe. Just go for Santa Fe. And Hyper Shadow says, Skynet, I mean AI, will surely change the world one day for us all. Yes, that as well. AI is definitely mostly terrifying, more so than it is promising, in my opinion. But we will see how that plays out. Goodstick says, for the next gen Chrysler Pacifica, which could be electric, FCA should go crazy and give it plaid level acceleration. That could potentially give electric FCA products a chance. I mean, they're no strangers to high performance, and obviously they have the motors with the charger already ready to go. They could do a crazy Pacifica Hellcat if they wanted to, or something, or I guess they would call it, what do they call the charger? It's the Banshee. They could call it, Pacifica Banshee or something like that. That could be cool. I mean, it's a lot easier to do, I think, than it would be to, do the gas swap like they did, or tried to do back in the day, or wanted to do. I think it was think maybe it was the main designer there for FCA that like drew up and did, I think, an actual SEMA build of a Pacifica that was Hellcat powered, but it was just like a fun, thing to mess around with because it was, of course, not viable for production at all. But it'd be fun to see a fast Pacifica. We'll see. And Jordan says, thanks, Matt, for keeping the live chats going. Me and Chad also cherish the weekly updates. I'm glad you guys enjoy them. I really appreciate that. And yeah, thanks to all of you who have joined in. We are at the 2-hour mark here. I see Jason thought Skynet was taking over when Microsoft update went wrong. LMAO. Yeah, that was crazy a couple weeks ago. Got sent home halfway through the night from work at 2 a.m. Wow, that's crazy. B. Mitchell says, AMC made in China. I'd rather see it remain dead. Fair enough. So anyway, see everyone saying good night here. Goodstick says Subaru should lower the Outback and call that the Outback STI. Give the wagon the STI treatment. Yeah, I mean, I'd just take a new Baja, just hack the back end off an Outback, throw a plywood bed in there, and call it a Baja, and they'd sell a ton of them. But anyway, I see Jay says, thanks for coming on air for us, Matt. Let us know how everything goes. No harm, no foul if there's no time for extravaganzas in Minneapolis. Thanks for the update on the CT4V. We'll keep you updated. Awesome. I appreciate it, Jay. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining in. I hope you have a great week here. Stay tuned for, lots more coverage here this week and another live stream here next weekend. The following weekend, though, I may not be doing one. Just as an early heads up for anyone that, plans these into their into their schedule or whatever. But I'll definitely be back next week for another one on Sunday. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.